Welcome back to this explainer. Look, if you're aiming to retire early or just want to squeeze every ounce of efficiency out of your life savings, you are in exactly the right place. We're jumping straight into the ultimate 2026 data-driven ranking today. We put together a listicle comparing states and countries to map out precisely where your money is going to thrive, thanks to the incredible power of geo-arbitrage and, well, where it's literally going to vanish into thin air. We've got a definitive countdown of the best, most affordable, and tax-free places to build your future. And we're breaking the math down step by step.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty massive question. Why is aggressive saving actually a huge mistake if you end up planning your retirement in the totally wrong city? You know the drill? People spend decades hyper-focusing on the sheer size of their portfolio. They're tracking every single penny, but they completely gloss over the fact that geography is the ultimate wealth multiplier or divider. Honestly, earning a huge salary or building a giant nest egg means absolutely nothing if your local cost of living just eats it alive before the end of the month.
To really put this into perspective, let's look at a critical baseline. We know the 2026 Social Security cost of living adjustment is locked in at 2.8% to help offset inflation. But here's the reality check. Your geographic location dictates your standard of living way more than the size of your portfolio right now. Sure, a 2.8% bump is nice, but remember, that is just a national average. If you're living in a city where local inflation or housing is surging by 6% or 7% a year, you're essentially losing purchasing power every single day you stay put.
So, let's look at Section 1, the 2026 Retirement Reality.
We absolutely have to start with the single biggest baseline threat to your financial independence, and that's housing. You've probably heard of the golden 28-36 rule of personal finance, right? It's that classic guideline saying you shouldn't spend more than 28% of your gross monthly income on a roof over your head. Sticking to that means you actually have capital left over for food, healthcare, transportation, and, keeping your investments growing. But man, the stark reality of 2026 is that hitting that 28% target is becoming mathematically impossible in major coastal hubs. The old-school retirement math simply breaks down when basic shelter is devouring half your income.
Which brings us to Section 2, where not to retire.
If we want to win the retirement game, we first have to look at the board and spot the traps. And if you're looking abroad for a retirement haven, the 2026 Numbeo Global Cost of Living Index reveals something absolutely wild. If we use New York City as our baseline score of 100, islands and tax shelters are completely dominating the highest living costs on the planet. I mean, Bermuda sits at a staggering 123.5. That means living there is 23.5% more expensive than living in New York City. Places like the Cayman Islands and Switzerland are right on its heels, driven by luxury tourism and importing pretty much everything. Let's be real here. A tax-free haven isn't much of a haven if buying a simple carton of eggs is going to bankrupt you.
And looking closer to home here in the US, the picture is incredibly stark. Keeping a roof over your head in places like New York City, Honolulu, or San Francisco requires literal millions of dollars. We are talking a median house price in NYC of nearly $2.68 million. Honolulu is inching toward $1.6 million, and San Francisco is still well over $1.3 million. Entry fees that astronomical instantly destroy most early retirement blueprints before they even get off the ground.
Moving right along to Section 3, most affordable U.S. cities.
Now here is where the magic happens, the incredible wealth-building power of high-contrast geo-arbitrage. We just saw where wealth goes to die, so let's look at where it goes to multiply. When you index the cost of living across the states, you see the staggering composite cost index of places like Manhattan or Sunnyvale sitting way up above the 200 mark. But on the flip side, incredibly affordable, high-quality cities like Tupelo, Mississippi, and Harlingen, Texas are literally registering at a 0.0 baseline relative to those coastal extremes. Think about that. The exact same million-dollar portfolio that barely keeps your head above water in California will let you live like absolute royalty in Texas or Mississippi.
Based on the fresh 2026 data, here is your countdown of the top 5 least expensive cities in the United States, places where your dollar is going to stretch the absolute furthest. Coming in at number 1, Tupelo, Mississippi. Number 2, Harlingen, Texas. 3 is Decatur, Illinois. 4 goes to Richmond, Indiana, and rounding out the top 5, McAllen, Texas. These cities offer a profound drop in housing costs, property taxes, and just everyday expenses, which means your portfolio gets to compound completely uninterrupted. And it's not just retirees catching on to this trend. Highly skilled, educated workers are already leveraging remote work to relocate to these exact affordable regions. They're out there trading tiny, overpriced coastal apartments for spacious homes, getting a vastly improved quality of life, and aggressively accelerating their savings rates.
Seriously, whether you're aiming for early retirement or you just want to maximize the income you're making right now, ditching those hyper-dense, expensive regions is absolutely the ultimate financial hack of this decade.
All right, Section 4, Managing 2026 Living Costs.
Let's see how all this builds when we factor in the daily realities of maintaining your lifestyle way beyond just paying the mortgage. And hey, we've got some good news here. The USDA forecasts that grocery food price inflation will hit 1.7% in 2026. That is actually below the 20-year average of 2.6%. So we are finally getting some very welcome modest relief at the supermarket checkout. But we can't get complacent. Unpredictable ongoing pressures from energy costs, global tariffs, and transportation mean you still have to budget super carefully. Inflation might be cooling down, but absolute prices, yeah, they're still high.
This leads us into Section 5, Protecting Your Retirement Wealth.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that geo-arbitrage, finding that cheapest, most tax-friendly place to live, is really only half the battle. You also have to aggressively protect the wealth you've worked so hard to accumulate from market volatility and those sneaky hidden fees. Looking at the broader economic weather, Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki has publicly warned of a potentially massive market crash hitting right in that 2026 to 2027 window. But look at his framing here. He's urging investors not to panic, but to view this volatility as an unprecedented opportunity to acquire income-producing assets. Wealth isn't destroyed in a crash, right? It just transfers from the unprepared to the prepared.
To make sure you're firmly in that prepared camp, you've got to execute on the 2026 FIRE blueprint. First up, aggressively max out that new $24,500 limit on your 401k. Second, if you are retiring early, you must strategically manage your taxable income so you can navigate the returning Affordable Care Act subsidy cliff. If you drop the ball on this, your health insurance premiums are going to absolutely skyrocket. And finally, make sure you're utilizing bridge accounts like standard taxable brokerages to sustain your cash flow before you hit 59.5 and can legally access your retirement accounts penalty-free.
And while you're busy managing that portfolio, you absolutely must plug the silent leaks. I am talking about wealth-draining advisory fees. Networks charging you 2% or more in total management and product fees will quietly eat up a massive chunk of your lifetime returns. No way around it. Instead, the data overwhelmingly points to seeking out low-cost, fee-only fiduciaries. They charge less than 1%, and crucially, they're legally bound to put your financial interests first, not their own commissions. It's a real game changer for your bottom line. Which brings us to the ultimate question you have to ask yourself after reviewing all this data. Is your current location silently stealing your early retirement? At the end of the day, wealth isn't just a number sitting in a spreadsheet. It's about strategically deciding where you're going to live, figuring out how far you can stretch your hard-earned dollars, and fiercely protecting the assets you've built. So, taking all of this into account, where are you going to build your future? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a crystal clear roadmap for your financial journey moving forward.